Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling, your ultimate destination for all things AEW and WWE. Whether you're a hardcore wrestling fanatic or just a casual viewer, we've got you covered with the latest news, in-depth show reviews, and our unfiltered opinions on everything happening in the world of professional wrestling. Join us as we dive into the high-octane action, dramatic storylines, and backstage buzz of AEW and WWE. Get ready to step into the ring with us and stay on top of the wrestling world. This is Top Tier Wrestling. Welcome, everybody, to the Top Tier Wrestling Podcast. I am your host with the real heel feel, Dawn, joined as always by my partner in podcast crime, Josh. Tonight, we cover Friday Night SmackDown, SmackDown from March 14th. Let's get into it.
Hey, partner in crime, that's me.
That's you.
All right.
The face of the company.
Hopefully a nice face. This episode of SmackDown was special for a couple of reasons, but not the least of which is that it's taking place in Barcelona, Spain. And I tell you what, to open the show, LA Knight comes out, and Spain made it clear right at the outset that they are thrilled to have SmackDown in their town. This crowd was legit tonight.
Yeah.
I think you mean, yeah.
That's exactly what I mean, yes.
So LA Knight, the new United States champion, makes his way to the ring. And he goes on to say, this is the first SmackDown right here in Spain, and though he might be the U.S. champion, by God, he's worldwide. And the crowd starts chanting, and he says, well, I appreciate that. I want to get right down to business. It was way too long that I stood out here without this championship, but finally it's back, and it's back in the hands of where it should be. This man right here with everybody saying L.A. Knight, yeah. And it was about that moment that we hear Jimmy Uso's music. And when we were looking at this, we were like,
Yeah.
Okay. So Jimmy makes his way down to the ring and jumps in, and he says his road to WrestleMania is running short. And he's tired of the speed bumps that keep popping up and the detours. And he's going to start his road to WrestleMania by challenging LA Knight for the U.S. And he said this, when he said it, we laughed. He said the U.S. tag title.
Yeah.
I know it's live TV, but that was funny.
Always a bridesmaid, never a bride.
But it doesn't stop there. Everybody was on one. I can only assume that the flight was long because everybody tripped a little bit over what they were trying to say, it seemed, or a lot of people did. Speaking of which, after that, Solo and Jacob Fatu and Tamatanga all come out. I'm trying to remember, were they coming out to Solo's music or Jacob's? I think it might have been Jacob's, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think they came out to Solos.
To Solos? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, and long story short, Solo says, hey, if anybody deserves a U.S. title shot, it should definitely be... And he makes you think he's about to say him, but he switches it off and says, Jacob Fatu. You see, a couple weeks ago, you stole the pin. And that's why the title wasn't able to come back to the family. And he says, oh, Jimmy, how you doing? Good to see you. And then he tripped over something. I think he was trying to say failure of the family, but it's like Solo had a stroke. He was stroking out. He was just like, burk, burk, burk. And he
Yeah,
had to
he
like stop and then
my
try
man, my man
again.
for real went. He for real went. Ooh. Like, oh.
He did. It was just like watching Solo blue screen. And but then Jimmy's like, "Oh, failure, huh? I'm not nearly as big a failure as you losing the Ulafala to the OTC Roman Reigns."
Well, that conversation that she was just trying to have with me at the beginning.
Yeah, really. And so then you've got Solo and Jacob starting to get aggressive and sneaking in from behind. Tamatonga runs in and hits the hanging DDT on Jimmy Uso, and they start beating up like 3-on-2 LA Knight and Jimmy Uso, but that's when Braun Strowman comes out. And after beating on each other for a little bit, out comes Nick Aldis to inevitably turn this into a 6-man tag match, which brings us to our first match of the night: LA Knight, Jimmy Uso, and Braun Strowman versus Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, and Tamatonga in a 6-man tag match. And what were your thoughts on this match?
I thought it was a pretty damn good opener. You bring out, excuse me, you bring out L.A. Knight to start your show off, and you're doing pretty good. Him or Jey Uso, and he pretty much is Friday Night SmackDown's Jey Uso. So, this was a pretty good opener, and then to have him in a match shortly after that with not just with LA Knight, but now you have Jimmy Uso, you have Braun Strowman, and the current Bloodline Part 2. I don't know what they call themselves. I forgot what they call themselves, but
Yeah, Bloodline .0 or something. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. But you got Solo and you got Fatu, so we're talking about like a pretty solid opener. The match itself was pretty good. The only, you know what, Strowman's a powerhouse, but Strowman is not a runner. So I'm gonna need them to come to some other way for him to do like a power move. Him running at somebody and trying to do it is just like, yeah, okay, good. It always looks like
Oh,
he's,
the locomotive or whatever it is,
yeah, like that, like I know that they really love having a big dude knock over like regular sized people. I know
like
that's like,
bowling pins.
yeah, I know that's super fun for them, but he's just not the dude that's pulling that off. Um, Breaker can pull it off. He's a big dude, but he's got that speed. He's got the agility. Um, Strowman does not. Strowman's just a big slab of power. Speed, not his cup of tea. So when he does the running, it just looks good. It just looks goofy. Like he's like, you see that dude running, and the first thing you think is, he ain't gonna make it in time. Like, like if I
Yeah,
saw, like if my life depended on someone saving me, like in a timely manner, and he was the dude running up to do, shit. Well, let me just go ahead and
not
make my
gonna
peace.
make it.
Let me just make my peace now. You know. So, but I'm joking. But other than that, it was a fun match. And a great opener. Like the whole shebang. Really good way to get everybody involved and into it. So yeah. What'd you think?
I feel the same way. It was a very fun and high energy match to open with. I mean, you had LA Knight out there. You have the Bloodline, minus Jey Uso and the OTC, still out there being able to make things pop, and that's good.
Yeah.
Solo looked good. He hit Jimmy with a massive spinning solo right out the gate, and it's notable because one, the spinning solo looks cool, and that
Yeah,
was
I
his
can't believe
finisher
I
in
didn't talk
NXT.
about that. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't mention that. Like, because I'm always so happy to see it, and
Yeah.
if I can go off on when he doesn't do it, and I didn't even mention
Hmm.
it when it was my time. Fail.
And it looked great, and that was actually my point in mentioning it. Was like, it was nice to see it, and it was noteworthy to us because We lament that they had him stop using that as his finisher in
Yeah.
favor of the like. Now, I get the idea of an homage to Umaga, but like for as big of a Samoan dynasty as there is, like you really shouldn't be trying to whittle down the number of available moves.
Yeah.
And like 2 or 3 of them in the family are using the Samoan spike. You really didn't need to give it to Solo as well.
Yeah, and
Um,
also an homage to Umaga. Listen, I think the fact that there are 30 Samoan wrestlers right now is the homage that he needs. I don't know why everybody's got to do the fucking thumb deal. Like it's not even that great of a move. Like it'd be different. It'd be different if it was one of those powerhouse moves that a Samoan created and like, oh, this is gonna go down in history. It's not though. It's a thumb. It's a thumb to somebody's throat. Stop it. Get some help.
yeah, for as many of them are in there, the fact that like you've got him using Umaga's old move, and now like
Yeah.
Jimmy, Jay, and Roman all use the spear.
Yes,
It's
come on.
like you've managed to have like what feels like 10 dudes that are all using 3 moves to finish people off, and it's like spread it around, just spread the love.
Like, how many
I mean,
homages are we gonna do? Nah, I mean,
I do, and it's at the point where it's a little uncreative. I'm about as tired of stuff like that from like Samoans in wrestling as I am to the persistent numbers of Latino wrestlers that all do the 3 amigos and a frog splash.
oh my goodness,
Like
yeah,
like we've moved pat we are well past homage to just being uncreative in the ring.
yeah,
Um so yeah, this is a WWE product. They pride themselves on like having the what is it, the power plant or the training center, and being able to filter up wrestlers, and it's like then we really need a higher caliber of in-ring work and more creativity in the ring.
yeah.
Please. But I say all that just to kind of make that complaint in general. This match actually was very, very good. And in no small part, like everybody did pretty well, especially on Solo's team. Like Solo looked good. Tama Tonga, and this is what I mean by the Barcelona crowd being like legit. Like they popped for LA Knight, yeah, but they also popped for Tama Tonga's yeah.
They
They
did.
went along with everything.
Yeah,
This
they
crowd
did.
was fire. Um so and Jacob Fatu, of course, looked fantastic. Everything he did was golden in the ring. LA Knight looked good. I can't think of any flubs in the ring. So I
Yeah.
don't I think it was a solid match.
What'd you think about the
And
win?
I thought it was good. I liked the fact that Braun Strowman kind of like strategically picked his moment after he did the the slow motion I think I can locomotive that kind of took out everybody else. He grabbed up the smallest member of Solo's team. He grabbed Tama Tonga, tossed him in the ring, and then hit him with the like most gargantuan of like 400 megaton power slams, and it got the easy 1, 2, 3. But then Solo jumps into the ring like a second after that and hits him with a Samoan spike, which apparently like just will kill any man no matter his size. And so he goes down, and then you have pretty much I want to say LA Knight gets in and Jimmy and all of them, and they start brawling after the match is over. And at one point, I think Solo and LA Knight go off into the crowd by themselves. Like LA Knight tried to clothesline Solo over the barricade, and Solo didn't quite make it, so they just sort of pushed him over the barricade.
Yeah.
And then LA Knight followed him out. And so you have Jimmy and Braun still in there with like a flattened Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu. And Jimmy takes out towards Jacob and eats like the biggest super kick. And then Jacob gets into the ring and just proceeds to go ham on Braun Strowman after the match. I want to say he hit him with like 3 or 4 of his double jump moonsaults and just obliterated him. And then it looked like Fatu and Tamatonga were going to head out because like Jimmy and Braun were like over, and Solo and LA Knight disappeared into like the city of Barcelona, where they're still fighting to this day.
Legend has it.
Legend has it. And about midway, or maybe 3/4 of the way up the entrance ramp, Fatu turns around and Tamatonga keeps going. And Fatu runs back to the ring, and at this point, Braun Strowman had kind of like gotten out of the ring and was leaning up against the ringside timekeeper's barricade that's right there. And so he just takes off like a bullet and jumps into Braun Strowman, splattering the barricade and Strowman, and then getting up and then heading back out. And at that point, like Fatu had just destroyed Braun Strowman. For the second time, no less. I mean, geez Louise. At a certain point, like, the monster among monsters is going to be less monstrous if he keeps getting his ass kicked by everybody he's, in the ring with. Like, at some point, he needs to just squash the life out of somebody. Because they're making it such a battle, and even in this case with Jacob, battles he's losing, that it sort of diminishes his monstrous, like, the reason he's considered so frightening, It's like, please don't turn Braun Strowman into the joke that became the Big Show.
Yeah, I actually feel like it's too late.
You do?
Yeah,
we're past that point.
I think we are. I could be wrong. Maybe at any point they're gonna turn this thing around. But the thing is, I don't see that because they're up on Fatu so much, and whenever he started his heat. When I say he, I mean oh my god, the big
Strowman?
guy, Strowman. Thank you. I was about to call him Bronson Reed. When he started his feud with Bronson Reed, like kind of the same thing started to happen, where it was like we were expecting him to win because even though Bronson was wider, Bronson technically was larger, like bigger. But that's not the case. Like Bronson kind of whooped that ass, and Jacob, I mean, the first match they had, I think it was the first one that Jacob and Strowman had was just so definitively Fatu's match to win that now it's kind of like I see those two together and I'm like, yeah, nah, I know that he can whip your ass, Strowman. So that's what I mean when I say I kind of feel like it might be a little too late. And when I think about the foreseeable future for Strowman and the guys they have him up against, I don't see him coming out the victor often. So I'm not sure what they're gonna do with him, but I kind of feel like he's already in that Big Show territory.
Yeah. I feel like it was more even-handed with him and Big Bronson Reed. In this one, like twice now, like the only up that Strowman's had against Jacob was like a choke slam through a table, which Jacob got up from before the end of that segment, like pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas Jacob has definitively demolished the shit out of Strowman in the two that he's up on right now. So I'm going into this actually thinking that Jacob, like without necessarily relying on any help from like Solo or Tamatonga, I'm not saying they won't, but I don't feel like he needs it. I feel like Jacob could just straight up beat Braun Strowman's ass at this point.
Yep, because he has that, and that's exactly my point. Yes, and maybe it was more even with Big Bronson Reed and Strowman, but maybe now that's a problem because see, that was kind of a special thing, right? Like these two dudes were like monstrosities going at it, and that's not how they were billing Jacob Fatu. Like he's the werewolf, yes, but they weren't billing him the same way that they were doing with Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed, this was supposed to be like a whole, basically, literally, no pun intended, a whole different breed of men. These two, and even though they were evenly or more evenly matched, that's just not the case here. So he went from being more equal to kind of being Fatu's bitch.
Yeah.
And I just don't know how they're gonna. I don't know how they're gonna pull him out from this.
It's a fine line because, I mean, when they attempt to script it in such a way to try and make it believable that these gigantic men will lose. The problem is that if you make me believe that too much, then I'm like, what is actually in your favor? I mean, yeah, you're huge, but you're a kitten, and that just means you're slow and dopey because that's how they make all of these guys sell that they are losing to these much smaller people, is that they are slow and dopey. And so and I watched that happen to Big Show. Like, Big Show just got turned into a walking joke. Even though he was a guy who actually could, like, lift, a dude like Mark Henry up. Like, Mark Henry tried to sandbag one of his choke slams one time, and I'm not saying he did it on purpose. I'm saying, like, he didn't give him much lift. And Show bodied him up anyway. And you've seen Mark Henry. Mark Henry is massive.
Yeah.
So if you end up making it so that these giant, muscular, like, super powerhouse guys are really not that frightening, then all you're left with is someone who is dopey and slow and just happens to be big.
Yeah.
And that's how we get to Raquel Rodriguez. I mean, how we get to Braun Strowman.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I know what I said.
Yeah, but you're not wrong.
No, I don't believe so.
No. Not at all.
I think it's a tough line for them to walk to make you believe that these guys who could probably one-arm their opponent have to have a means of losing, and it can't just be running them into the ring post.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a tougher job than, maybe it's tougher in reality than it sounds on paper to do, because strength is such size is an overwhelming modifier to fights.
Yeah.
The only thing that comes close is numbers. And so if Jacob is going to beat this guy who clearly has size on his side by, like, a fair margin, because as big as Fatu is, like he's a big dude, but he's outweighed by 100 and something pounds still by Strowman and like a foot of height. Then believably it would be a numbers game that takes this guy down. But they don't want Fatu to have to rely on that. Like, he's so crazy, he's the werewolf. I love Fatu, I do, but I think you are sacrificing Braun Strowman's, like, legit. What is the word? Maybe verisimilitude as a ginormous threat. Like, Braun is the guy that you send out that nobody wants to have to fight, right? Until he isn't. Until it's like, oh, this is going to be a softball match because Braun Strowman's just slow and dopey.
Yeah. So they're going to have to come up with something. They're going to have to do something to make this a little, like, unless they intend to bury him. In which case,
if that's
don't know
the
why,
point,
that sucks.
I don't know why. Yeah. What's the point of that?
No.
But I think I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, I think for Braun and Jacob to be compelling, I'm going to have to see Braun, like, maul Jacob before their match. Otherwise, at this point, it's been billed to me that it should be considered a foregone conclusion that Jacob is just going to tear Braun apart. Because I've watched him do it to him twice.
Yep. Agreed.
Well, moving on from there, we are given a Triple H Hall of Fame package. Apparently he's being inducted. The Game, the Cerebral Assassin, the King of Kings. And the head of creative, is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2025.
Exciting.
After that, we are reprised with the situation between Naomi, Bianca Belair, and Jade Cargill with a video package that spanned a couple of the events of Elimination Chamber and the events of, I want to say, last Friday night SmackDown, where Bianca confronted Naomi. And that was actually all a lead in for what comes next, at which point I will go ahead and turn it over to you, if you would.
Absolutely. I think it was Kathy Kelly who's having a interview with Jade Cargill. That we really didn't get into much. I will say that Kathy asked her how she knew. Of course, she asked how she was doing and all that, and Jade was expressed being upset because basically the three musketeerettes are no longer, the band ain't together no more. And Kathy did ask her, which I thought was interesting, how she knew that it was Naomi, and I think that's the question or the answer that everybody was looking for. And basically, she stated that she saw her. That was the last person that she saw running away after she was attacked from behind. So there you go. This interview was interrupted by Liv Morgan. Essentially Liv Morgan. I mean, of course, her right-hand woman was there. Raquel was there, but Raquel didn't say much. She just kind of laughed at what Liv said. And they came in very loud. I don't even know where they were coming from. Like, I think they were coming into work, but again, late. You bitches is late. And I don't know why y'all decided to walk through the auditorium that they were that they were in. But they came in as loud as fucking possible. And Kathy was asking them to be quiet. You know, she was doing an interview, and they were like, "We don't give a fuck." And, you know, you heard, you see it, you know what this was. So then, they gave some snark back. This ultimately led to a match between Jade Cargill and Liv Morgan next week. And once Liv and Raquel left after agreeing to the match, Kathy tried to get back to the interview with Jade, and Jade was like, "This ain't the vibe," you know. She wasn't feeling that no more, so she just left. And that was that. After that, I believe that we had a nice little like promo, right? For BFAB.
Yes, where BFAB showed off her, what did you call it? Proper school book Spanish?
Yes, it sounded like she was just reading it off of the nicest, cleanest note card possible. It was very proper. But hey, she said what she said. And I think she did a pretty good job. She cut a pretty good promo considering that we don't really get to hear her. I think maybe they might be up on BFAB because not only did she have a nice little introduction, but she's going against Charlotte Flair. Like, you know, this was her little promo into the match that she was having with Charlotte Flair, which was the second match of the night. And would you like to talk about that match?
I feel like coming into this match, we heard about it last week when BFAB got in Charlotte's face, and we talked a bit about it then, and we kind of discussed it when it was happening tonight. And coming into it, we're both like, "There's no way BFAB wins this," but yeah, because she's had like at least televised matches. She's only had like 3 in the past several months.
Yeah.
And so this is probably the single biggest match for BFAB. So we were like, we know BFAB ain't winning, but is it going to be a good match? Because she can still go over even if she doesn't win, if she puts on a good show. And I feel like she did for someone who is relatively new to wrestling, at least on TV on the full-time SmackDown roster of women. BFAB actually did a pretty good job. I want to say there was only like one brief kind of a like stutter step where I feel like they were just slightly out of sync with one another. Otherwise, it was great. And there was this one move BFAB did, and I do mean like one move because BFAB didn't get a ton of offense off, but there was this one slam she did where she was behind Charlotte and she like spun her into an Uranagi position and hit her with like a fab bottom, I guess, as opposed to the rock bottom.
Mm.
And that was a really solid move. I think the only other move that I saw BFAB do that I thought was pretty impressive was she ran at Charlotte in the corner and did a high spinning back kick. And I was impressed. Like I think she could do a splits easy because she got that leg way up there. Like I was like, did you actually hit Charlotte or go over her head?
Yeah.
But that was kind of the long and the short of the offense. The rest of it was her selling Charlotte's moves. And Charlotte had this one move that I hadn't seen her done before. It looked like it was one she may have borrowed from Stephanie Vacour. This one where you sort of get them in like a leg lock around their neck and then roll them over and then kind of pound your knees into the ground so it looks almost like you're humping the back of their neck. And I was like, oh, that's weird. But then Charlotte took it one step further by turning it into like these repeated flipping slams. And she did that like 3 times to BFAB. And I was like, ooh. So that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, while I do think BFAB put on a very credible showing, especially for an opponent, of Charlotte Flair's caliber, as inexperienced in the ring, or at least as inexperienced as we've seen her in the ring, I think she did great. But ultimately, Charlotte ends up hitting the figure 8 and causing BFAB to tap out.
Yeah. Yeah, this was another fun match. I think it was smart placement as well, being the second one. And it was good. And I think BFAB, like you said, had a great showing. So, yeah. No complaints. Decent match.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't stop there, as you knew it wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, Charlotte leaning into being a heel does not break the figure 8 after BFAB taps out and continues to hold it, even with other referees coming in and trying to, hey, stop. It's not until we hear Tiffany Stratton's music and see her running to the ring that Charlotte lets go of the hold. And unfortunately, this was a little flub on the part of our Women's World Champion. Tiffany tried to slide into the ring and got caught up on the ropes, which just sort of left her laying at the feet of Charlotte Flair, who then proceeded to start kicking the hell out of her. And ultimately, this ends up being kind of a knockdown, drag-out fight between these two women. And, they kind of are beating each other up, brawling around the ring, until they finally get some order back. But it's not until, like, Stratton ends up jumping, like, they fight all the way back up the ramp, and Stratton goes around the back while the security is hanging on to Charlotte, climbs up the back of the Titantron, and does a swanton bomb off the Titantron onto all of the security and Charlotte Flair that are there to end this particular segment, and it was kind of crazy.
It was, but there were so many jumps off of stuff onto other people in this particular bout. Like, I mean, they were going off. like they were going off. Entertaining as hell. But yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty good. I think the only one that looked a little sketch to me was the one where Tiffany went to the top rope and the security had Charlotte kind of by the entrance ramp next to the ring. But she was so off to the side that when Tiffany Stratton did the swanton bomb from there, like, all she hit was security dudes and Charlotte fell down, like, out of sympathy.
Yeah.
But the one at the top of the ramp was much better.
Yeah.
So it was good.
Yeah.
And spoiler, it's not going to be the last time we hear from these two tonight, like with this fighting. But the winner of the second match of the night, Charlotte Flair via submission.
Yeah.
Which brought us to a Drew McIntyre promo.
It did indeed. And this particular promo was just for him to paint the picture of his disdain for one Damian Priest. They were trying to create this heat earlier in the year, I think. And
Royal Rumble.
Yeah, and it didn't pan out the way Drew had hoped, probably the way Damian had hoped as well. So they're rekindling that fire now. So the promo that Drew cut was basically a recap of why he wants to kick Damian Priest's ass. Pretty much.
Yeah, it would surprisingly, instead of it just being Drew McIntyre whining for a long period of time, it was Drew McIntyre actually made a pretty good point that Damian Priest was the one who benefited from just about every screw up he had throughout 2024 into 2025.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, kudos for that actually being coherent. Because it is. The line that he drew, I'm like, okay, I can see why you have it out for Damian Priest. And he pretty much said since his road to WrestleMania is toasted, this is just about kicking the crap out of Damian Priest and putting him down like a dog for good.
And then, I tell you, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I am too, because this was actually a really good promo from Drew, and I hope if they're gonna make him menacing, like actually make him menacing, because you've been kind of treating Drew McIntyre, who looks like a walking action figure, for fuck's sake. I mean, this dude should be at the top of the card.
Yeah.
But yeah, give him some menace. I'm here for it, because Dangerous Drew would be legitimately frightening. The next segment, well, I don't know if I felt it was awesome, but you know who would think it was awesome?
No one.
The Miz.
Oh.
This is a special imported from Raw episode of Miz TV. Well, wait a minute. Actually, I take it back. Didn't Miz get transferred to SmackDown? So I guess...
Yeah.
All right. So it's not specially imported from Raw. So it's an episode of Miz TV, and he comes out and is very snarky, and he's trying to do his lead-in for the show, but he gets cut off by the fact that Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair are apparently still fighting, and they come out onto the entrance ramp, and all of security is trying to break them apart as they just keep fighting, and then they, shuffle them all back off, just to show you that, these two ladies are apparently just going to fight forever.
Yeah.
All the way to WrestleMania now. They want no sleep. They'll be on the plane traveling to the next venue, beating the crap out of each other.
Yeah. They're gonna have plane footage of them fighting.
Yep. And when we do get back to the Miz, he, in short order, with more than a few veiled insults, introduces that his guest is the quarterback of the WWE, self-proclaimed, of course, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. And Cody's coming to the ring, and he's doing his normal entrance, and then when he gets to the top rope to do the second, whoa, Miz, like right at that point, because everybody's waiting for it, he says, cut the music. I don't have time for sing-along with Cody Rhodes. I'm here to ask the hard-hitting questions. I've already been interrupted by Tiffy time. So, let's go. And Cody Rhodes immediately jumps off of the top rope into the ring, proceeds to march to the Miz, kick him in the gut, drop down on his back, and punch, uppercut to the Miz, and then grab hold of him for the crossroads. And he basically crossroads Miz completely out of the ring, and he's never seen or heard from again. Yeah. And then Cody Rhodes says, "Look, I'm not interested in talking to the Miz anyway. I don't want to talk to anybody unless his name is John Cena. So if you can find it worth your time to join us on the road to WrestleMania next Monday, just know I'll be there." And that was it. I mean, I don't often thank the Miz for much, but he made that a short and sweet segment by cutting off
Yeah.
Cody's super long intro.
Yeah, thank you so much, Miz.
Yeah, that was a good one, Miz. Well done.
True hero. Real American hero.
That's how we end up with Chad Gable. Stop.
Oh, that's true.
And would you like to speak to the next little segment?
I believe, yeah, Nick Aldis was backstage yelling at Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, if I remember correctly, he was yelling at him for blinding the referee with the red mist last week. But I'm not sure if I remember it being his fault. I remember him going in for the spray and then the dude moving, and so the ref got it. Isn't that correct? Like his opponent moved. But I mean, like he was already he was in spray mode. Like he couldn't. What was we want him to do? Suck it back into his face? How was he gonna do that?
Right, just hang on to it.
Yeah, he's like, oh, sorry.
Right, turn your head. Crap! It's the ref. Turn away.
Like,
No, it was when him and LA Knight were wrestling for that. LA Knight won the belt, and he went to spray LA Knight, and LA Knight ducked out the way, and the ref caught it. So
okay,
I'm like,
so why aren't you yelling at LA Knight as well? Like
right,
I can't believe you let him. I can't believe you let the ref get sprayed in the face. Like, I mean, if you're yelling at Shinsuke, but Shinsuke was like, I'm not about that business. Shut up.
Yep. Shinsuke, who is standing there wearing his Beatnik Poet dressed up outfit. I guess the WWE fully disagrees that Shinsuke needs to keep any sort of kayfabe with his Dark Samurai. They're like, fuck it, we don't care. Yeah. He's Shinsuke the librarian when he's not Shinsuke the evil Oni-possessed samurai. So just get used to it.
Get used to it. So then, he's, being Shinsuke. And then, Nick told him that he was lucky that he wasn't suspended for spraying the ref accidentally in the face. But Nakamura's not hearing that either. He just wants a rematch, a championship rematch. And then Damian Priest walks up. He joins into the conversation, and but he's looking for Drew because he heard the conversation that Drew, or the promo that the promo that Drew cut in the ring, and Nick's like, I don't know where he is, and he's already said that he's left. Take that for whatever you blah blah blah. British. He said he left the building. Blah blah blah. British. Okay. And then Shinsuke said something, and that's how we got into our third match, because Shinsuke said something, Damon's like, what? And then Shinsuke started talking to him in Necroli Japanese. I don't know what it was that he said, but here's what I think.
But he had said. All the attitude with it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give you the Black Woman attitude version of what I think he said. Damon Priest said, you got something to say? And then Shinsuke Nakamura said, first of all, don't be asking me what I got to say. I was in an interview and then you interrupted me. So maybe I'm asking you, do you have something to say, bitch? Okay. And then Damon didn't like that. And, he's like, I want to fight you about that. It's just Shinsuke's like, come at me, bitch. And there we go. So that led us into the third match, Damian Priest versus Shinsuke Nakamura, just because, you interrupted my interview, and I don't like you no way.
Yeah,
that's pretty much why they were fighting.
I'm wondering if we had turned on subtitles, if it would have been like Shinsuke's like, Mr. Priest, I was in the middle of an interview. Could you please kindly wait your turn?
We'd send
And
our captions. Good lord, sir. I meant no offense. I had a query as to why you were so upset. Yeah.
it turns out it's all just a big
That's a
misunderstanding.
big misunderstanding. And Damon's like, I don't know what the fuck you said, but I'm gonna beat your ass for it. Yeah. So in summary, Americans learn Japanese. The takeaway: learn a different
Or,
language.
or in summary, Shinsuke, learn English. We go into the third match, and this was a pretty good match.
Yeah.
It was definitely not the best opponent that I've seen Priest go off against.
No.
I'm trying to think of high spots, and I'm struggling. I want to say the high spot was Shinsuke running at top speed into a like off the ropes south of heaven.
Yep.
And maybe that time Priest hit Nakamura with a lifting flatliner. Outside of that, I feel like it wasn't as high octane as other matches I've seen Priest in.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Priest catches Nakamura running at him and gets the 1-2-3 off of the running south of heaven. And this is after he saw Drew McIntyre outside just before he was about to do a normal or not off the ropes south of heaven. And I want to say Nakamura attempts to roll him up, and Priest kicks out, and then we then get said running off of the ropes south of heaven. But it's not very long before
I have to. I think I might have to correct you. He did not win. He got a disqualification.
Oh, okay. I think he was going to win, and Drew jumped in and started punching him and caused the DQ, which was in favor of Damian Priest.
Correct.
And after beating on Priest for a little bit, Nakamura hits a spiteful Kinshasa to Damian Priest as he's getting up off the mat. And then Drew comes back over after he exchanges like a glance with Shinsuke, like, thanks for kicking his ass for me. He goes over and he starts punching on Priest. And then I want to say the refs get McIntyre to kind of leave the ring for a bit, but then he turns back around and gets in. And as Priest is getting back on his feet, McIntyre drills him with a claymore and then basically leans in, and we can kind of hear him even though he's not on a mic. He's basically telling Priest that he promises he's going to make his life a living hell.
Yeah. And
so, yeah, I feel like that was the main goal of this match because it kind of came out of nowhere like an RKO. Because there had been no heat between Nakamura and Priest, so they're just like, here we go, and so it's like a throw together match just to get Priest and McIntyre to have that particular interaction.
Yeah.
So it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't anything to write home about either. Nothing special.
No. Speaking of nothing special, Kathy Kelly was backstage having an interview with DIY. And Ciampa was talking some ridiculous shit like they're the reason that SmackDown is awesome or why the tag team division for SmackDown is the best in professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Gargano called the Street Profits a second place team. Don't even get me started on that. Don't even get me started.
Yeah, at the risk of offending both of DIY's fans, which I think might just be their moms, Not a fan of Gargano and Ciampa. Like these two just do nothing for me. I'm not super blown away by their in-ring work, and they have very little personality. I think Tommaso Ciampa, at least back in the day in NXT, could come with it as like a heel, and I've seen him put on a very good match. Like on the main roster, I think the best match I've seen him in was one he had with Gunter. But while he's glued to Johnny Gargano, neither one of them are very good. I'm just not here for DIY. So again, to both of the people who call themselves DIY fans, I don't care. And what's wrong with you? Continue.
Yeah. So, they, I mean, it was really just them talking themselves up. They got interrupted by the Motor City Machine Guns, or the Motor Gun City Machines.
Yeah, the City Motor Gun Machines.
Motor Machine Gun City.
Machine Head by Bush. Oh, sorry, yeah.
It's I wish I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be more interesting.
Yeah, it would totally be more interesting. You ain't lying. But basically, they this was just to set up a future continuation of their beef with one another. Basically, once they got finished with their tag team championship match, DIY, Motor City Gun Machines would be waiting. That was pretty much that. And then again, Kathy Kelly, busy night for this woman. Backstage interviewing Chelsea Green and her secret Hervis agency.
Oh, it was like a breath of fresh air. Suddenly interested again.
Yes, pretty much, yeah. And this was really funny because I can't. What did she call her? I'm trying to remember. So basically, while Chelsea was talking to Kathy Kelly, Zelina Vega and her giant hair came up. Like, I don't know what's happening, but her hair looks like it's getting bigger or she's getting smaller. Like something's happening where her hair is starting to consume her. Like, I don't know what it is, or it's like I don't know, but it's like there's a helmet under there. Her head's shrinking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. It's freaking me out. But she came up, and cause she's been lusting after Chelsea's belt. But Piper said something really funny. She called her something.
She said it was like, "Hold up, habanero."
Yes, hold up there, habanero, which we found delightful.
It's because Piper's delivery of that line was so perfect, and it was so just filled with snark, and it just hit right, and so we busted out laughing, and it was great because it was a really like fun way to show off some personality from Piper Niven.
Indeed,
and it was a zinger. I loved it. Hold up, habanero.
Yeah,
because Zelina was like, "I challenge you. I want to be queen, Chelsea," and Piper was like, "Hold up, habanero."
Yeah, which set up a match for those two next week. And with that, we are quickly into the fourth match of the night, which was Randy Owen, every freaking time.
Randy and Kevin Orton.
Randy Orton versus Carmen. I'm just gonna start saying it like the way my mom said orange.
Randy Orton.
Yeah, Randy Orton. My mom would say orange. So give me orange. Yeah. So Randy Orton versus Carmelo Hayes. Bless his heart. I don't know what Carmelo did, but I'm starting to feel like he is the Max Caster of WWE.
Oh, such a good analogy. I see it now. Yeah, you're right. He's coming out saying I'm the best wrestler alive. It's just when he says it, he says I'm him. And
Yeah,
I'm like, so is every other dude. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah, like whenever somebody says, who's the guy that needs to go to the emergency room? Him.
yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
you are him. Who's the guy who probably should have never left NXT? That would be him.
He's not
Yeah.
alone. Actually, I think a case could be made for many of them.
Oh God, yes, absolutely. But in this case, I'm going to talk about Carmelo because he's just a sinking ship at this point. I thought that they had somewhere. I thought they had something they were doing for. I thought they had a path. I don't think they do now. And I don't think they care to have a path. Like I'm kind of concerned because I'm not sure what they're doing with Max Caster right now either. However,
Oh, over on AEW, just
yeah,
to
yeah,
be
oh,
clear, because several
yeah, yeah.
people
Just to be
might not,
clear,
might not be aware. This is like we mostly talk WWE, but you're referring to Max Caster on AEW and
yes.
making the point that these guys are on a downward trajectory to where exactly? Like, are
Yes,
they setting their careers on fire?
but the difference being, I still see an interest in I still see that they have an interest in Max Caster there. I'm not seeing it here, so I'm not really sure what they're going to do with Carmelo. I will say, regardless of the incident between him and Austin in that match, like a couple of years or a year ago or so now. Um, Regardless of that, Carmelo is a good wrestler, and I don't think they should just shit can him just yet. I think maybe they should give him an opportunity. They saw something in him to begin with. They saw something in him enough to bring him from NXT to the main roster. So maybe they give this dude a proper shot, and not bury him. You know. So that's just my Carmelo rant. Um,
Well,
in this, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to speak to that rant because I agree with you. Um, I'm trying to figure out what it is he's being punished for. Maybe it's something behind the scenes that we never saw. The only thing I can draw a line to is, like you said, the very badly botched like Austin Theory match that he had some time ago now, and I feel like he's been paying for it ever since. Because he came to the main roster. He's like the second round or first round draft pick to SmackDown or some shit, and all he has done since he's been here is lose.
Yeah. And then when he won, it was against, no offense, but it was against like jobbers, like people like. Go ahead.
The last time I recall him regularly winning, like he sometimes can get a quick pin on somebody, but the last time he had some definitive wins was against Andrade in their best of 7 billion.
Yeah.
In which case the odds just favor that he's going to win a few of those. But he has been on a complete jobber streak ever since. And I mean, I think it's good. Like we just said the same thing about BFAB getting in the ring with Charlotte. But it's good that they put you in there with their top talent, but it's bad if you only exclusively lose, because instead of saying you deserve, beyond a point, instead of saying you deserve to be in the ring with this talent, you're actually more reinforcing why you deserve not to be in the ring with these talents, and that NXT was your peak, buddy. You're nothing here. And that's the message that's starting to really send with regards to Carmelo Hayes. So this dude's going to have to like show us at some point why he's quote unquote him.
Yeah,
because
take a
not
stem
everybody.
off of him. I don't know what they're doing. I feel like it started with this ridiculous personality they gave him here. That was the other thing. I mean, he didn't have this personality in NXT. Whatever this is, this weaselly, goofy, have to cheat to get a win, dude. What is this?
Yeah, and not everybody who watches main roster WWE looks at NXT.
Correct.
And
Yeah,
so
true.
there's several people that might not be familiar with how he was in NXT, but he was a very dominant champion down there.
Yes.
At this point, I feel like you could make the case that like was the only reason he ever succeeded at all because Trick Williams was kind of his lackey. And now look at where Trick is. Trick is like absolutely killing it in NXT.
Yeah.
But Carmelo can't buy a win over on SmackDown. I mean, he's not even trying to go against like the Alpha Show roster.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not good for poor old Carmelo. And in case all of that discussion didn't spoil how this match with Randy Orton went, spoiler, Randy Orton RKO'd the life out of him.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. It was this wonderful exchange near the end where Hayes blocks an RKO and then tries to go for the first 48, which is his version of the code breaker, basically. And Randy Orton just stood through it. Like he just was too strong to be brought down by it. And then I want to say Orton uppercut Hayes, but then Hayes immediately responded with a second first 48, and this time it connected. But when Randy stood up in the cell, Carmelo proceeded to try and do a follow-up move and just walked into an RKO that basically made Carmelo do a headstand.
Yeah.
And after that, Randy Orton just took his time. He's all like, well, he's dead. Gets the 1, 2, 3. And then stands up and tries to, be a more sporting, mature Randy Orton and tries to help his opponent up and give him a handshake. And Carmelo, being the idiot that he is, pushes Orton, in the face. And that pisses Orton off, so he gives him a second RKO. Again, second handstand or headstand of the night for Carmelo Hayes. And it looks like the voices are talking to Orton now. He feels disrespected, so it looks like he's setting up to go for the punt. And it's like, well, he was him. But just before Randy Orton's able to land it, Kevin Owens pulls Hayes out of the ring, and Orton immediately...
Damn it, Kevin!
God dang it, Kevin Orton. He pulls Hayes out of the ring, and Orton follows him out immediately and starts trying to wail on Kevin Owens. And Kevin Owens is able to weather the storm of face punches just long enough to push Randy Orton into the turnbuckle post. And then Kevin jumps over the guardrail and runs away, and Orton's back is suffering the effects of that turnbuckle shot plus the probably match he just had, and so he gets away from Orton. And that concludes this match that Randy Orton won via definitive pinfall, and definitely speaks to business not being done between Kevin Owens and Randy Orton.
Yeah. And, what I found out?
What did you find out?
What? Hold on, I just want to make sure. Are we done with this match? Okay. I found out, and I think you have just found out, that vignette that we saw.
Mm-hmm. The mystery vignette with lightning bolts and yellow colorings.
It was Phoenix.
Is it really?
Really?
I didn't know that.
Yep, it was Phoenix. I am so excited about that.
Well, you had said was that Ray Phoenix, and I was like, well, I'm not sure. Because they showed a silhouette of obviously a luchador because you could see they were wearing a mask, but I didn't remember Ray Phoenix being as jacked as that silhouette looked.
Oh, that Go ahead.
I was just going to say, he hasn't been utilized by AEW for a while now, since him and Penta made it kind of their intention known that they wanted to come to WWE. And so maybe Phoenix, like many pro wrestlers, when they're given some time off, just hammered the gym. Because his silhouette looked ripped.
Yeah, I think he hammered the crap out of the gym, for real. Yeah. So yeah, that's what that was. That and right after that, and you can get another little surprise after that too, because that
Hmm.
was the next one I completely missed. But after Solo Sikoa tells Jacob Fatu that Braun Strowman is not on his level, and it's time to take him out. And if I remember correctly, Jacob Fatu said the rest, like he cut the rest of the promo. I usually like to say
He
the stuff
did.
that he says because he's a delight. Jacob Fatu cuts an amazing promo. He's fun, and I love the fact that he always talks about dog walking someone's ass.
Oh yeah, it was great. I'm trying to recall. It was something like I think he said something like, "Let's keep it 100. Braun can't touch us. Live from coast to coast, live from post to post. Jacob is going to dog walk Braun's ass next week. That's how we
Yeah.
do." And then they all shouted "Fatu,"
Yeah,
and it was amazing.
amazing. Yeah, I was here for it.
Jacob is going to get the crowd over on like the remnant bloodline or like whatever the little sub faction is. It's Solo, Jacob, and Tama.
Yeah, real talk.
Yep. So
After
what was
that,
the next surprise?
the next surprise, that the next vignette that we saw was Alistair Black.
Is that the one that looked like wisp of smokes in the number 4? And we were like, what was that? And we were like,
Yes.
well, it wasn't a 6, so I don't know what happened to the Wyatt 6. Where did they go?
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know. So the smoke in the 4 was Alistair Black?
Yeah, I have no idea what any of that means, but apparently that was his promo, and maybe or his vignette. Maybe I just don't know enough about him, or what his what his deal is. I don't know. But
Well,
apparently, according to the interwebs, that was Alistair Black.
well, all right. We got some like popular names coming over from AEW back to the WWE.
Yeah.
I'll be perfectly honest. I missed out on most of Malachi Black's run when he was with the WWE the first time.
Yeah,
I've
me
seen a
too.
lot more of Alistair Black's run. I've seen him more as Malachi Black when we were looking at AEW.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what is the same and what's different over here on his return to WWE. And I'm super excited about a returning Ray Phoenix. Man, if Penta was making waves when Ray gets here, oh man.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited. I am. I don't know if you heard. Excited.
Yeah, sorry Mysterio, there's a new Ray in town.
Truth. Truth bomb. All right. Well, after all that exciting information, we got the Gunther promo. And it was basically him doing what he has been doing, for the past few weeks, insulting the wrestler that's coming out to fight or to wrestle with him, and Jey Uso, and comparing the two, comparing the person that he's going to quote unquote beat for the night, comparing how they're going to come out here and give it their all, and then doesn't matter because they're going to lose. And essentially, he's been saying this entire time that Jey Uso's like a jobber, or he's what's the word I'm looking for? He's a mid
Joker?
card. He's a mid carder. Like like essentially like because everybody that he brings out has been that type of wrestler. Uh, and he's comparing, and I mean it's a pretty for Gunther. It's pretty brilliant. It's diabolical. Let's try that word again. Diabolical.
Diet Robotical. Got
Diet
it.
robotical. Yes. It's diet chanchavical. You know. But I mean, like,
Diet
yeah.
Chavo
So,
Guerrero. Got it.
unfortunately, however, unfortunately, and I'm gonna say unfortunately for Gunther, the person that he was insulting and having his match with tonight was Axiom, which is a huge Spain favorite. I think he's from Spain.
Yeah, he was recruited, I think, out of Spain or maybe even Barcelona.
Yeah.
So he's the hometown guy.
Yeah, he straight up out of Barcelona, and people were feeling that. And the audience lit up like Christmas trees for him. And this led us into the fifth match of the night, Gunther versus Axiom. And I'm just gonna say real quick, and then I'm gonna stop talking and hand it over to you. Just to get my little bit out about this match. I don't have much to say, but I will say that this felt almost like the mini main event. Um, and not all Gunther's always good. Axiom though, Axiom did a fool. He looked fantastic. And him and Gunther, I thought, looked really good together, which I was kind of surprised about. The audience was really into this one, and for me, whether it's fair or not, the audience has not a huge, well, yeah, actually, they have a huge impact on how much I'm enjoying the match as well. If it's a dead audience, it bothers me enough that I kind of lose sight of the match because I'm just like in my head going like, why do you guys suck so much? I didn't have to do that. This audience was they were lit. They were all about it. And again, Axiom looked impressive against Gunther. I mean, there were times when I thought, yeah, this is it. And Axiom was like, nah, he would kick out. And I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, pretty impressive. Almost too impressive. I was like, he was almost just like almost like, all right, that's just too much now. Just a scooch. Yeah, but I thought it was a great match.
I agree with you. He gave Gunther one of the better matches that I've seen him against anyone. And it was kind of a crossing of styles, right? Because Axiom is full on like Lucha High Flyer.
Yeah.
And Gunther is like the opposite of that. And Axiom really hung in there. Like, even after the first power bomb that Gunther hit him with, Axiom managed to kick out. And then Axiom got to hit the golden ratio on Gunther in return, which Gunther then kicked out of. It wasn't until a relatively like massive exchange of offense. You know how Gunther does. He'll go on a run where it's not just like he doesn't just use his finisher, but he'll hit you with like 3 big moves into his finisher. Yeah. And in this situation, I want to say it was something like I want to say it was a situation where Axiom, I think, was trying to hold Gunther down in some sort of armbar. Maybe it was Taz's favorite, the Jujikatami.
Oh my goodness!
But Gunther like lifted him up in what would otherwise be like a schoolboy powerbomb, drills him with that first. Then the second Axiom makes his way back to his feet, he turns him literally inside out with a massive clothesline. And it was after that he hit him with one more powerbomb with Extreme Prejudice, and that got him the 1-2-3 against Axiom. But I mean, he had to go for it. Like I mean, to Axiom's credit, he made Gunther really work for this win. And I guess it pissed him off because after the win, of course, Gunther throws Axiom into the sleeper hold until like the referee corps had to come out there to get him to let up. And the whole time, I'm sitting there waiting to hear Jey Uso's music. No Jey Uso.
No Jey Uso, which I found interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but you know what? Maybe he couldn't travel.
Well, I actually, by the power of the interwebs, found an answer to this question. Apparently, during SmackDown, he sent on his Instagram a picture of him on a plane, and he says, "See you in Germany, yeet." So he's already heading to Germany for when, I guess, SmackDown or Raw is going to go that way since they're kind of on a European tour right now. I think they said next week they're in is it Bologna, Italy?
Yeah.
And so I imagine after that they're going to Germany. I think.
I don't know.
So it's either that or it's going to be Monday is in Germany and then Friday in Italy. I don't know. But that's where he was because that was my first thought. I was like, is this an issue with like Jay's passport or traveling? It didn't turn out to be the case. So I guess he's good there because he's traveling to Germany. And I guess if you could make it into Germany, you could probably make it into Barcelona. I would think.
Yeah. Unless one is stricter than the other for some reason. But
I don't know if they individually have those things set up, or if it's something that the like whole European Union would figure out for them all. So that I don't know.
Yeah.
But that was a really, really better match than I thought it would be. I thought surely Axiom is going to get destroyed by Gunter.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it did turn out that way, but it wasn't until after Axiom really took it to Gunter, like way more than I thought he would. So it actually makes me look forward because I've heard a rumor that Fraxium, which is the tag team of Nathan Frazier and Axiom, for those that are unaware, they're the NXT tag champs. I have heard a rumor that they are slotted to be coming up to the main roster soon. Now, I don't know if they're coming to SmackDown or if they're coming to Raw. But if Axiom's performance against Gunter is any indication, it's going to be real good, assuming that, they don't get the... Like, some of the people that come up from NXT get treated really, really well with their booking, and some people, as we were just commenting on, like Carmelo, get buried into the floor. So... here's hoping that Axiom's performance against Gunter on this episode of SmackDown makes it so that they fall into the former rather than the latter.
Yeah, here's hoping.
And after Gunter's win against Axiom, we end up being shown a fairly lengthy video recap of Roman Reigns making his return to SmackDown last Friday by attacking Seth Rollins and CM Punk during their steel cage match. I'm sorry, on Raw. On Raw on Monday this happened.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my brain is like we're watching SmackDown, and I know Roman's is a SmackDown star, so I just put everything on SmackDown. But
right,
yes, it was Raw. But that lengthy video package sets up what happens next. And I turn it over to you if you would like to talk about the promo.
Jace. After that little, recap of Roman Reigns and his terror, his reign on Seth Rollins and CM Punk at that steel cage match.
That's what you did there.
We get a Paul Heyman that's already in the ring, and he does his normal introduction. But this promo was basically just to hype up Roman Reigns and basically to let, because he made a statement about CM Punk being his friend, and whatnot. But even with that, he made mention that today was Roman Reigns Day, not CM Punk Day. The audience was chanting CM Punk. It's Roman Reigns Day. And it sure as hell wasn't Seth freaking Rollins Day. And when he did that, of course, the audience started singing Seth's song. Paul Heyman does not like that song. I kind of believe him. I actually believe that he doesn't like the song. And it's probably like a joke backstage between everybody, and I think he uses that in his promos because it's something that's the truth about him. I don't think that he would actually make that up. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know why I went on that tangent, but Paul Heyman is a very interesting character to me. Probably one of the best managers in WWE history. Like
Mm-hmm.
he cuts promos like butter. Like it's like he's the total manager package, honestly. And when he is no longer on this planet, it will be a horrible day.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a loss felt throughout all of
He is
Wrestledom.
absolutely irreplaceable. So,
Mm-hmm.
I
His
just
mind and his love for this business is second to none.
yeah, just had to go on a little tangent. A little tangent about that. But yeah. So today is Roman Reigns' day, and he also mentioned that it was also the release of the 2K25 video game. Excuse me, and that if you have anything, if you have any issues with the fact that the tribal chief is actually him and not Carmelo, uh, then you can say it to his face because he's going to be in Italy next week. Which the audience was like, because he's not going to be, he's not coming out tonight. To which Paul Heyman replied, stop crying. You can go to cheapo airlines and fly over to Italy.
Yeah, what did he say? He's like, it's not
I
like
don't think
Mussolini's
Mussolini
going to be waiting at the border.
to stop you from entering. Which I'm like, damn, cold blooded. Um,
One of a kind.
yeah, one of a kind. And he ended it, just like he ends it normally. Like he began it with "Hello, my name is Paul Heyman," and he ended it with his usual. And that's not a prediction. That's a spoiler.
And then with prejudice, yeeted the microphone into
Yeeted
the
the
camera.
microphone right at the camera's face, just like eat it. And after that, we got. We were told that on SmackDown, Jade Cargill will battle Liv Morgan. Zelina Vega and her hair will collide with Piper Niven, and Braun Strowman will clash with Jacob Fatu.
I would say that that's an unfair matchup. I mean, Zelina Vega and her hair is like two opponents versus Piper, but
no, it's just, it equals one person. Oh my gosh. She's gonna wake up one day and her hair's gonna be like, wake up.
She's just gonna like her body will wilt away as her hair just becomes like sentient and she starts walking around on her tresses.
And next you know, she's it.
She's just a head hanging by.
She's cousin it.
She's cousin it.
Oh my goodness. And I actually like I love the way this is written here, so I'm just gonna read this as is. Shortly after that, after we get the information for next week's SmackDown, Legado del Fantasma is backstage passively aggressively wishing the Profits good luck in their tag team title match.
Yeah, it's like good luck because we've got next no matter who wins.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. And we were still backstage when we see Jimmy sitting and just living his life. Gunther shows up and he says like he knows that Kim and Jay are twins, but he thinks that Jimmy is the responsible one, the mature one. So he wants him to, I guess, talk to Jay and talk Jay out of this match at WrestleMania, which is just the strangest thing I have heard tonight. I'm not like the match is already set. I'm not really sure how you would expect. I'm not really sure how you would expect. Not really sure how you would expect to stop the match. I mean, you could go out there and injure him. That's but that's about it. I just thought it was really weird. But basically, he's trying to get Jimmy to talk some quote unquote sense into Jay, and Jimmy basically ends up telling him that you're talking to the wrong one, and you will be losing your belt. And Gunther was not happy about that. Um, but he ended his bit with, he was just so exasperated. Like, he really tried. He has really, really tried to save Jay. So he walks off dramatically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me thinks you're working awful hard to not have to face Jay at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
It really is painting the picture that Gunter is afraid that Jay's got his number this time.
And I mean, rightly so, because the last time he fought a scrappy underdog, that was Sammy, and he lost that belt.
Yep.
And he's pretty much seeing the same fate here. He sees it. He sees the light dimming at the end of that tunnel. And I'd be extremely surprised if Jay didn't get that belt. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not impossible, and as long as the match is good, I wouldn't care. But I'd be very, very surprised if he didn't. I just feel like it's his year.
I agree. I think overwhelmingly most of the prediction is that it's going to go to Jay at WrestleMania 41. I kind of feel like, and I know that the WWE hates feeling predictable, but on this one, I think you've painted the picture, the writing's on the wall. No one's going to be happy. Like people will be severely disappointed, and Jay's momentum will in fact be damaged if he does not manage to pick up a win and become the world champion.
Yeah.
I
agree.
I only see all roads leading to a Jay Uso win, unless it's going to be like, oh, but we want to swerve you and disappoint the crap out of you all, you know? Or unless there's some kind of like super swerve and somehow Jimmy Uso shows up to interfere. And I thought about that and I'm like, that is so old and played out at this point. Like,
Yeah.
you guys, you pulled that lever so many times back with the Bloodline that Jimmy kept sabotaging Jay's matches, that if it were to happen that way again, it's the same end result. It's just going to be hugely disappointing and not interesting at all.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
So
here's hoping that they have learned something.
Here's hoping that they decide it's better to be satisfying than it is to just be surprising for surprising's sake.
Yeah.
But following that particular exchange, where for some reason Gunter thought that Jimmy would somehow miraculously take his side on this issue, that brings us to the sixth and final main event match of this episode of SmackDown, which is the WWE Tag Team Championship match between DIY and the Street Profits. And the Profits cut a promo on the way to the ring where they make sure you know that they want the smoke.
Yes. What did you think about this match?
I think I liked about 50% of the people that were in it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be perfectly honest, like I have felt like the Street Profits need to be the World Tag Team Champions for a long time. And it's just been like, why are we shitting on this team that's doing so good in favor of like teams like Motor City Machine Guns and fucking Vanilla Midget City DIY?
Yeah.
So I wasn't particularly thrilled with that matchup, especially considering that like the booking seems to have this nasty propensity to favor DIY. And so I was like cautiously optimistic that maybe this time because so many times before it's been not this time. And it's also like, maybe there's interference because the tag division has been so crazy. And throughout the match, they continuously showed us Pretty Deadly watching. And I thought, is Pretty Deadly going to somehow interfere? But I think they were shown just because they are the presumptive, number one contenders for whoever wins this match.
Yeah.
And prior to this match, we had both Legado, get in the Street Profits faces, and we had Motor City Machine Gun get into DIY's faces. So I'm like, oh man, is there going to be some kind of interference? In that regard, I was pleasantly surprised. It turns out there was no interference.
Yeah.
And it ended up being a pretty solid match. And I think I'll stop there on the off chance that you want to speak to it before I give away, the outcome.
No, because I think that what I would speak to is probably the outcome. So you go ahead and then I'll talk.
No, go for it. You go ahead.
Right. What I'm saying is, I would most likely speak to the outcome. That's what I would want to talk about the most.
Gotcha. Well, we'll say this match had 3 segments, and it was a pretty back and forth match in the first 2 segments, but it got super intense in the 3rd segment, which is where I'll focus. Nearing the end of the match, not Pretty Deadly, I'm sorry, the Street Profits and DIY are going back and forth pretty good. And I want to say Dawkins hits Ciampa with the kind of the assisted suplex where he sort of pounces Ciampa into the waiting arms of Ford, and Ford suplexes him. And then Ford goes up and hits, or would hit, a beautiful 450 splash, except for the fact that Tommaso Ciampa got his knees up. So instead, it was a beautiful 450 rib breaker for for Montez Ford. And at that point, Ciampa tags in Gargano, and Gargano starts tangling with Dawkins, and Ciampa runs over. I'm sorry, starts tangling with Montez, and Ciampa runs over and knocks Dawkins off the apron, which allows DIY to hit the Shatter Machine. And I thought, oh, well, that was a cool match. But to my surprise, Montez kicked out of the Shatter Machine. And apparently to Tommaso Ciampa's, because they gave a very long face shot of Tommaso looking absolutely incredulous and frustrated. And then I want to say Dawkins gets back into the ring, and Montez is able to make a 7-foot tag. Like it's one of those situations where DIY is trying their damnedest to not let Montez tag Dawkins in. And Montez is grabbed by, the foot, and he spins around and kicks the opponent off of him. And after being so dead, he finds the will to jump 6 feet in the air to make the tag.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to believe you were so exhausted you were crawling on the ring when you then spring 6 feet in the air. But it was cool looking nonetheless. And after that, I want to say Dawkins goes in on Ciampa with a step up in Zagiri. Gargano intercedes and super kicks Dawkins. Ford then counters with his own step up in Zagiri, and then also hits a rising knee strike against I want to say Gargano. And while they're in the ring, Dawkins goes outside, where I want to say he delivers a pounce to Gargano. I'm sorry, not Gargano, to Ciampa, into the Timekeeper's area. And then as Dawkins is heading back towards the ring, Gargano hits a suicide dive. And then he steps back up on the apron and tries to hit a slingshot spear. But Dawkins, who was in the ring at the time, grabs him out of mid spear into a quick silencer, that spinning kind of neck breaker he does. And Then Dawkins puts Johnny Gargano on his shoulders and goes over and tags in Ford. And they're attempting to go for the Doomsday Blockbuster. But Ciampa makes his way back in and he blocks it. And the way he did that was by getting up on the apron and trying to push Ford. And Ford jumps over Gargano, who is now sort of fallen backwards. So now he's in a position as if Dawkins is about to hit him with like a reverse Alabama slam. You know, just kind of hanging on over his shoulders by his ankles. And Ford steps in, you know, like Ford lands on the mat and rolls into it and then jumps back up and does a super kick to the now hanging Gargano. And then he does another super kick to Ciampa, who's out on the apron. And then from there, Dawkins is able to reseat Gargano upright. And this allows Montez to go ahead and hit the Doomsday Blockbuster.
Yep.
But this only gets a 2 count. And at this point, I'm like, oh my god, this match, you know, they're hitting each other with their big team finishers and nobody's getting pinned.
Yeah.
And from there, I want to say Ford attempts to try and do like a slingshot dive or a slingshot pescado, which is basically just like a crossbody over the top rope. But apparently Ciampa countered with a rising knee strike. And meanwhile, Dawkins kicks Ciampa, I want to say, off the apron. And then goes up for a swanton bomb against Gargano, who is laying flat inside the ring. But Gargano rolls out of the way, so Montez gets a whole heaping helping of backflop into the middle of the ring. And I was like, oh man, it's not looking good for the Profits.
Yeah.
And after that, Ciampa gets in there and sets up Montez for the fairy tale ending. And Gargano also manages to get the super kick in, so it's the combination fairy tale ending super kick. And I'm like, oh man, well, it was a good try there, Profits. But Montez then kicks out. And I'm like, oh my god, this match is just going to go on forever. And after that, Ciampa tags in Gargano, and they set up to do meet in the middle. And I want to say they were trying to do this on Montez. And Montez kind of gets out of the way. Like, he moves at the last second, which basically means Gargano and Ciampa run into each other. And then Dawkins hits a huge spine buster and then tags, well, I guess it must have been Dawkins that was actually in the middle for this. I'm sorry. So he hits a huge spine buster, I want to say, on Ciampa, and then he tags in Montez Ford, and Gargano, who was, I guess, on the mat still, gets absolutely demolished by Montez Ford hitting a from like the heavens frog splash, where, you know, the one where he jumps like so high in the air for it. And that actually leads to a 1-2-3, and the Street Profits are up, and they got the smoke and the new WWE Tag Team Championships. Well done.
Well done indeed.
And that was how they concluded this episode of Friday Night SmackDown. Having said all that, what would you rate this episode of SmackDown that took place in Barcelona, Spain?
I would give this, well, before I give it the rating, I just
Mhm.
wanted to speak to the actual match, the championship match between the Street Profits and DIY. This had been something that needed to happen. Them having the belts for so long that by the time it actually happened, which was tonight, it was almost like bittersweet, or I was almost like, and maybe it was because I was regretting who they were having the match against, like DIY. Seriously, um, but I got over it, and I'm more happy than anything that they finally got their freaking belts again. There's no tag team that's operating on Friday nights on SmackDown that I honestly believe is better than the Street Profits. Uh, they should have had these belts ages ago, so I'm happy about that. Now, with that being said, I think I would give this episode of SmackDown an 8 to an 8.5, and I'm doing that solely because the Street Profits finally got the freaking belts again. The Stroppets. They finally the Stroppets finally got their belt. I'm happy about it. So like honestly, solely because of that. And the opener was good. They had a good opener. The opening match was good. I mean, there was a lot of good this match. I mean, this episode. Finally, and I'm done.
All right, I can dig it. And speaking to that championship match and your response to the way like it sort of hit with the Profits, I do feel like there was a little bit of a it's about time instead of hooray.
Yeah,
Um, because I feel like the Profits have had that coming since back when the dang Usos were still a tag team who were locking up
yeah,
the belts, and the Profits were just constantly frustrated trying to get a win there. And it's like they're so good. Why aren't they the tag champs?
yeah,
And I also sort of felt like maybe part of that reaction is because of kind of the reaction of Montez and Dawkins. It's like when they won the belt, their attitude was sort of like subdued as well. Like you would think as long as they've been waiting to be the champs again, they would have been like jumping off the planet,
mm,
celebrating and going crazy. And instead, it was more like, oh, we told you, we deserved it. So
yeah,
it had that sort of vibe to it. Like it's just been too long of a time coming for their, for as good of a tag team as they are, for them to have not been holding it, especially when in in my fair assessment, as best as I can be, lesser tag teams have been playing with those belts while the Street Profits have just been sitting on the shelf.
yeah.
And it's like the Profits are really, really good. Like,
Yep.
so I'm very glad that the Street Profits won this evening.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I will also give this probably like an 8 out of 10 neck nubs. Um, because it was a solid show. There was like I didn't love Priest and Nakamura, which is saying something because I'm such a huge mark for Damian Priest. Like I really
Yeah,
like Priest. I'm on the fence about Shinsuke Nakamura. Um, I still feel like his in-ring work could be more interesting, but maybe it's just because it's not my preferred style. Like he is mostly a striker. Um, and I feel like striking and submissions are amongst my least favorite styles, whereas my absolute favorites are like power style and luchador. Um, So it really doesn't. Maybe it's Shinsuke. Maybe it's just his style. I'm not sure. For similar reasons, I don't love guys like I was never a mark for Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson, whichever one you're going with. And I don't like some of the folks in AEW whose fighting style seems to be called technical, which just means this is going to be a long and boring ass match. So that's just me. But I definitely think those aren't my styles. And Shinsuke Nakamura, I'm just not that big of a mark for.
Yeah.
That said, I can't really say it was a bad match. It just was probably the weakest match on the card for the night. Everything else I felt was more impressive. The big 6-man to open the show was really, really good. Several of the promos were quite excellent. There was some recap, but it usually was in service of what was just about to be relevant. So I kind of understood it, and none of them were like super stupid long, like some of the ones that can sometimes happen. So the promos were all good. The Jade Cargill interview where she was taunted by Liv and Raquel, who justifiably were like, "Hey, next time you get attacked, maybe speak up because Raquel and I have been being accused of that, for the whole time." And I thought that was pretty good. It makes sense. It tracks. Charlotte Flair versus B-Fab was a far better match than I expected it to be. B-Fab is a rising star, and I'm definitely watching with interest. Charlotte Flair is a legend in the business for a reason. Drew McIntyre's promo was very, very good. So yeah, everything was good. Even Cody Rhodes, who sometimes can be long-winded and take a long time with his intros, was neither tonight. His intro was cut short, and then he proceeded to basically kick Miz out of the ring and say, "Hey, I'm really only interested in John Cena, so if you deign to show up, I'm waiting for you, bud." Everything was pretty solid. There wasn't anything that was particularly weak at all.
Yeah.
Gunter Axiom was pleasantly surprising because I thought that was going to be it was funny too because you had just said, maybe the WWE should do more squash matches. And I thought, well, here comes one. And shockingly, Axiom put up one of the better fights I've seen anybody give Gunter in a while.
Yeah.
And then the tag match for the championships was a really compelling match. I mean, really, the only ding there is that I'm just not a fan of DIY, and that's not anything I'll deduct points over because the match itself was actually very good with some nice, really tense false finishes to where it came down to, the next team to hit the next big move is going to win, and sure enough, it was the Street Profits. So it was a good match.
Yeah.
So all that said, I rate this episode of SmackDown top tier.
Yep, excellent.
And that has been our review of WWE SmackDown from March 14th out of Barcelona, Spain. I just want to thank everybody who has listened to the podcast, and I hope you will join us for our next podcast. And until then, I don't think there's too much for me to do, but roll the outro.
Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Top Tier Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest AEW and WWE news and shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media for updates and to join the conversation. Until next time, everyone, remember, wrestling is always better when it's top tier.